I want to welcome everyone to Keller Williams East Monmouth. And I think that we are just so privileged to have our regional director, Shaun Rawls.
I'm the Robin, he's Batman.
Batman and Robin.
And you are a great team. Yesterday I was walking through here and people were still saying thank you for all the support for the region when Hurricane Sandy. I mean, it was tremendous. Give these guys a hand. And then of course, where would I be without my team leaders? Mary Beth, everybody knows. Bought all her people. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. My husband calls them the Three Musketeers, you know? And thank everybody for coming. We're excited. This is one of my favorite courses that you're going to teach. And so tell us what are you going to do? When's the break? What are we doing?
We have no breaks.
Okay, awesome.
We have no breaks. If you need a break, take a break. Right? If you need a break, take a break. Well, good morning. Good morning. This is the first time I've been back since Hurricane Sandy, so it's nice to come back and not in crisis mode. I will tell you, how many people are going to family reunion? Awesome. I cannot wait. I'm expecting to see a really cool feature on our region and the Hurricane Sandy efforts and what happened, and how we responded. And a lot of you know I'm on the board with Keller Williams Cares, but I've never been in a position to be able to benefit from KW Cares and be the front end of a crisis situation like we were. And I got to tell you, I told everybody I felt like Santa Claus, that I just, every time I got on the phone, I was giving money away. And it was just, it was really, the empowering result of that is you can't even describe it. 63 generators.
Yep. Over 1,000 blankets, 1,000 plus cases of water. Whoever decided 32 bottles of water made sense had never moved 1,000 cases.
Right.
We were hurt.
That's Costco. That's Costco. Yeah, Costco does that. That's Costco. All right, so today we are going to talk about negotiating, and I've got Michael Brand up here because I just found out that New Jersey now has to have CE credits. Now I know what's wrong with the region. You guys have never had to get CE credits, so you get licensed, you're good for life, right? So basically, I'm bringing you just some thoughts about negotiating that I think might be impactful. Hopefully some strategies and some tactics and some thought processes. He's here to keep me honest from a New Jersey standpoint, right? Because, in the South, we could do things a little weird, right? And I get that. We don't just talk weird, we operate business weird sometimes. So, how many people, does anybody not have a handout to follow along? I've got a lot to cover, and hopefully this is going to be a great tool for you to walk away
I've never seen one of your masterminds with 3 pages before.
I have never seen one of my masterminds with 3 pages either. So, you should hopefully keep your note-taking down to a minimum, or you can at least write a couple of things to kind of jar your memory as you go through. I want to start off with a couple of quotes up top. People tend to resist what is forced upon them, and people tend to support that which they help to create. And then the second quote is, in negotiations, the person who cares the least usually wins. I think those 2 quotes are extremely important to never, ever, ever forget. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about negotiating is we've seen a pattern since we've taken over the region of communication issues. And it tends to, I think that there's a presentation issue, opportunity for improvement that I've seen. If I could identify a few things that I think would help people do their businesses better or market centers perform better, it's really about communication and presentation. So I'm going to kind of pull in and out of that a little bit today, but hopefully it's something for you to think about. Maybe it's something for you to learn from, but hopefully, my goal is if you're spending 2 hours with me this morning, this is an investment in time for you, not a waste of it. So I'm going to try to talk fast for a Southerner, and we're going to try to get through a lot of stuff.
And I think in the Northeast, we think so fast and we know where we want to get to when it comes to negotiating, that we don't spend enough time setting the table. We just want to get to the end.
Right.
And that's a lot of what you want to talk about today, is how to set the table better.
Right. Well, and most people up here are Ds, right? We got a lot of Ds in the room. And if you're a D, your tendency is to want to drive the outcome that you know. And if you're pushing that and you're pushing against people on that outcome, that even though you know it's the best outcome, if a lot of times if people don't self-discover that, you're going to have problems doing it. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go through. So this is broken up into a couple of categories. So let me show you how we're going to go through this. We're going to spend some time just talking about negotiating offers and contracts. And these are random thoughts about negotiating buyer's agency contracts, could be listing agreements, could be negotiating with another agent in a deal. It's just kind of salt and peppered with some thoughts that we come through. Then we've got a section on negotiating multiple offers. As the market is moving, you're going to see more and more multiple offers come into play. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you need to think about with that, and hopefully share some things that might be helpful for you.
By show of hands, who's seen multiple offers in the last few months? So definitely, very, very similar to North Jersey. Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
And then the last section on the third page is just a few things to think about just in general when talking to buyers and sellers and negotiating with them. So there's a little bit of structure to the way I want to go through this. And so let's just kind of dive right into negotiating offers and contracts. One, don't think about it, think through it. When it comes to negotiation, we kind of understand your job is to lead people through negotiation. And a lot of people forget that, but if you're leading it, you need to know what an ideal outcome looks like. Now, it doesn't mean that if you know that outcome, you're going to push everyone towards it. You want to ask a lot of questions and help people self-discover things that will get them to realize that that's the same outcome that they want to go to. If you find that you're pushing too hard and struggling too much with somebody to get them where you want them to go, my guess is they're not as stupid as you think they are, right? Just may be that you're having a communication issue and you're not landing punches the way you need to land punches so that they get it. But it all starts with thinking through it, not really about it. Two, it all boils down to communication. Effective negotiation requires effective communication. Here's one thing I want you to know. When you start to negotiate anything, when you start to negotiate an offer for a buyer or for a seller, your communication needs to increase, not decrease. Now, you know you've got it, and you know it's under control, and you know there's nothing to report to somebody, but I got to tell you, you need to wear them out with communication, whether it's texting or phone calls and emails or a barrage of all three, just to let them know. People's minds start to wonder as soon as the negotiation is in play, and just because you and I do this every day, we cannot forget that our clients do not. And they are scared to death. And you may have had a great relationship up until the point that you wrote an offer, but understand this, as soon as there's an offer written and that is now a real event for them, now they're going to become suspicious of you.
Yes.
Now they're going to be concerned that now you're just going to try to push them across a goal line to get a commission check, and that you're really more interested in getting paid than getting them in the house that they want. And we can't ever forget that. We need to always make sure that they see themselves on the same side of the table as we are, and that we value them and their transaction more than we get anything. Because this is all about building a lifetime of referrals and increasing our network. But the way we do that is you communicate at a very high level. As soon as people's stress level goes up, they need to hear from you more, not less. The tendency as real estate agents, because of our behavior profile, is when our client's stress level goes up, we hide because it bugs the crap out of us. You get that? We tend to just not face it, and we just ignore them, or we'll call them back later. We see their number, we go, I'll call them after whatever. You know, we just do all that. But understand that if their stress level goes up, the fastest way for you to decrease their stress level is to communicate with them more. The fastest way to escalate their stress level is to communicate with them less. Even if it's not, even if you're calling and say, look, I just want to let you know, I left a message for Michael just an hour ago. I haven't heard back, but I did leave him a message. I also sent him an email. I copied you on it. If there's anything you need to know, let me know. But I have nothing to report other than I've done this and I'm waiting for the ball to come back. As soon as it comes back, I'll let you know. Whatever he says, good, bad, or otherwise, I will let you know as soon as I know. You're the first phone call I'm going to make. And you just continue to let people know that because it just sets them at ease. There's nothing worse than having a good negotiation go bad because you just didn't get off on the right foot and you didn't communicate properly.
And when you're communicating, make sure you communicate with them the way they want to be communicated with. And sometimes we get too lazy and too easy with texts. There are certain things you shouldn't say in a text. So don't leverage
Most things.
Most things. You know, if there's no update, that might be a thing to text. But if you've got a response, don't ever send a response or a counter impersonally. As silly as it sounds to say this, sometimes we get too lazy. So pick up that 100-pound phone and make a call.
There you go. 3, creating an arm's length transaction is perhaps one of your greatest values as an agent. This is an extremely true statement. We learn about this when we get our real estate license, sometimes in CE, so you guys are going to get reacquainted with it again. I think one of the greatest opportunities we've got as an agent is to be a middleman for people, particularly being a middleman for people who are unreasonable or a middleman for people who are too reasonable. And arm's length transaction, I've always looked at this as we are an attorney representing a client, right? In that we may have the biggest jerk in the world as a client. And if they didn't have an agent, they may never have the opportunity to buy a house because they may make everybody mad in the process. Follow that? So sometimes our job as an arm's length transaction is to take somebody who's really not nice and present them as one of the greatest people in the world to help their chances of getting what they want. Likewise, we may have somebody who's just a complete doormat that would just get run all over in the real estate business, and our job is to present them as a tough negotiator who really has standards and who really has a line drawn in the sand, and that we have to help protect them and get them what they want. That's what arm's length transaction does. And understand your role with your client. How does your client need to be portrayed so that they win with the other people? One of the things that in my world, I prefer that buyers and sellers never meet until the closing. I think that's awesome. When they start meeting ahead of time, a lot of times it just kind of creates problems because people start, the judgment meter's always running with what somebody's motivation is, what clothes they're wearing, how their eyes lit up or didn't light up. Whenever somebody, if they don't know who the person is, they always wonder and they always imagine them the way that they want to imagine them, and that may be accurate and it may be not accurate. So our job is to make sure that we influence how our client's being responded to based on how we present them professionally at any time in a negotiation.
Okay, think of yourself as an interpreter. Your client's going to tell you what they're thinking and feeling. That may not be the same way you would communicate to the other side. I was on the phone this morning with an agent who's completely lost control of the seller because he took a feedback from an agent and just forwarded it on yesterday.
Never good.
Not only with the feedback, but also with the other agent's email address. So now the seller just said, well, I'm going to contact that agent myself. Our agent completely lost control of their seller because he gave them information that he probably shouldn't have given.
Lazy.
Yeah, that's very lazy activity.
4, know your numbers. Remember, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? Bring your C game to the table. Here's the deal. Most of us are not great at detail, right? It's not something we enjoy, and the clients that give us the biggest problem are those that are really into detail when we are not. Understand that when it comes to negotiations, when you want your client to win, you will be the person who knows the most at all times. You need to know numbers, appreciation rates, occupancy rates. You need to know school systems, everything that you need to know from a detail standpoint about what gives your client a valid argument based on their position, and you need to be able to back it up. Too many negotiations are hard because too many people don't know what's going on. And everybody's arguing over opinions and nobody argues over facts at some point in the transaction. So the more data you have, the more information you have to back up your clients, the more effective you're going to be in representing them and getting them where they want to go.
Think of yourself as an attorney presenting a case. But present the facts. You want to use statistics. Keep in mind, half of all licensed active agents in New Jersey have done no business in the last 12 months. Another 30% have done less than 2. So the odds are good. You've got an 80% chance of being up against a very less experienced agent. So the more prepared you are, the better chance you have of controlling the outcome of that process.
Agreed. 5, become an ally of the other agent, not an adversary. This may be tough, right? There are some times when you come across people who are real jerks. You have to make sure that you are always the person who's communicating from a standpoint of bringing things together. You never want to get cross with another agent. The other thing that I watch agents mistake is the real estate community is small, right? How many people have done transactions with an agent more than once? Right? There's nothing worse than your client not getting a property that they should get because the other agent thinks you're a jerk. And we're going to talk about that in multiple offers because that's when it really becomes real. And if you don't think you're not getting a deal because of you, think again. And we have to make sure that we are behaving at the highest level of etiquette and make sure that if anybody's going to be a jerk, it's going to be the other person, and you're just going to love them through it, and you're going to be the one that stays positive, and you're going to be the one that keeps people all together, and you don't create people in different corners of the room in this negotiation process. It is, and that's easy to talk about. It's hard to do, I realize, but you're going to have to make sure that you've got to keep your cool at all times. A lot of times I've talked about being a pilot in a plane, and when you hit turbulence, it's best if the pilot doesn't freak out, right? Just so you know. So turbulence comes with the territory. When you got a license, in the fine print it says there are going to be moments of extreme turbulence when you use this license. Don't freak out, right? So don't freak out. Just make sure that you, even if it's tough and even if it's rough and even if somebody's being a jerk, don't fall to that level and be the person who flies the plane around it, above it, below it. Just get around the turbulence and land safely and smoothly. Got that?
Being an awesome co-broker will allow you to sell more houses because when you're in multiple offer situations, people will steer to you because you're a great co-broker. And get them on your side. Hey, Mr. Listing Agent, either A, we're going to sell this house together because that's what I really want, and B, if we don't, I'm at least going to put you in a better position to get your price reduced to maybe get your house sold easier. So either way, the negotiation process, you're going to try to help them from a co-broke standpoint.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about a presentation. If you came to stay with me at my house, and before you went to bed, I said, hey, would you like chocolate cake for breakfast? Right?
He really does offer chocolate cake for breakfast, by the way.
Most people are going to say no. Right? Most people are going to say, well, if you've got, a Pop-Tart, I prefer that, right? Or whatever, or eggs, or whatever it is that you eat, right? So you look at it. If I were to just throw that out there and say, how about some chocolate cake for breakfast? Most people are going to be like, well, a few of us might say, I'm in, right? I'm in. Get it. For the most part, that's not typical. Now, again, if you stayed at my house and I didn't ask you what you wanted for breakfast, and I came in and I brought you breakfast and bread, and I had a tray, and I had a plate, and I had a flower, a little rose in it, and I had a piece of chocolate cake, and a really cold glass of milk, and whatever, and maybe some strawberries on the side, and I put it on your bed, you're probably going to eat that cake. Right? You're probably going to eat that cake. Follow that? All the difference of whether or not you had chocolate cake for breakfast have everything to do with the presentation involved and the amount of options you had or felt like you had when the option was presented. Get that? So understand presentation is a really important part. Most people aren't going to want to eat chocolate cake and they will turn you down if asked. But if presented in the right way, I could significantly increase the number of people who would take chocolate cake for breakfast in that scenario. So in this presentation, you've got to make sure, how can I pitch this so that our offer, our position is taken better? And we're going to talk a little bit.
So saying I've got leftover chocolate cake from Christmas, would you like a piece for breakfast?
Yeah.
Isn't the way you want to present that.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, so 7. Now, is when you will wish you had a great initial buyer-seller consultation that uncovered the most motivating factors for your client. Everything must be tied to what they truly want. So, all too often, we get a buyer, we get a seller, we take off, we just know what they want, we fulfill their needs, we start negotiating an offer, and how many people have had a reasonable client that just goes haywire? Right? Happens all the time. It happens all the time. Why does it happen? Because it's natural. In fact, I would say if you had people that didn't go haywire, that would be more weird than when people do. So if you anticipate that, the importance of a buyer or seller consultation is if you do it correctly and you're sitting down with somebody and you're uncovering needs, you should understand from day one, before there's panic involved, you need to know specifically why they're making this move. Why are they buying? Why are they moving? Why are they selling? Why is it, what is the most important reason that makes them want to go through one of the most stressful events in life? And when you uncover that without a shadow of a doubt, that is going to be the anchor that you are going to have to use to bring people back to reality and planet Earth when they start to lose their mind, right? So otherwise, because understand this, going back to the pilot analogy, once you start negotiating real estate transactions, what happens is people start getting emotional reactions they bring emotional reactions to the table. And when they bring that, here's what I found. We're going to talk about this in number 9. But understand this. Somebody taught, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in real estate was in the first year I was licensed. And there was a commercial guy that worked in our office, and he kind of took me under his wing. And one of the things he taught me was what I wrote in number 9. He said, look, let me tell you this. When people bring emotional game to you, you have to respond with logic. And when people object with logic, you have to respond with emotion. He said, if you bring logic to logic or emotion to emotion, all you're doing is adding gas to a fire. And if you don't have logic to pull back somebody's emotional reaction, you're going to lose complete control of a situation in your client, and you may lose the client entirely. So one of the most important reasons that you're going to get a great buyer or seller consultation is to really uncover the anchor that you're going to need laser when they lose their mind. When they lose their mind, you've got to go, hey, look, I get that. I get that you're mad that he's not cleaning the refrigerator out, but that doesn't change the fact that this is the house out of 47 houses that we've seen that is in the school district, that is in whatever, and I want to go back to when the first consultation we had, when you told me if I could find this, and this, it'd be nirvana. Is there anything on that list of this, and this that this house does not meet? Take the jerk of the seller that lives in this property out of it. And leave the emotion out of it, and just let's play with the house for a second, and let's separate the house from the guy who lives in it. And let's evaluate, does this house, going back to what you said you were looking for, do we still think this meets all these criteria? If it doesn't, I'm totally cool. If it does, I just want to make sure we don't get off on a smoke and mirror trail that's going to derail you from what you really want. Follow that? If you do not have a buyer and seller consultation that allows you to dig up that thing months later, you're going to be at a loss for being able to put your cleats on and push this thing through. That's the reason you want to have those consultations, because it's going to give you the logic you need to talk an emotional buyer-seller off the roof. And if you're doing that when they're emotional, it's too late, because they're not thinking clearly at that time. You have to go back to, almost like your doctor, you have to go back to what your baseline was, and when did we first do your physical, and what was your blood pressure then, and look at it now. Let's go back to a point in time when it all was sane, and let's move it from there. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to go back to that baseline, and you've got to bring these people back, because it's the most important weapon you've got when they start losing their mind. And if you contribute to the gas on gas problem, shame on you. Shame on you. Our job is to be a psychologist as well as a real estate agent, right? I used to have a guy I worked with that under his card said real estate therapist, right? It was hysterical, because that's just what he felt like he did, you know? He just felt like he was dealing with weirdos all day long, and we are. right? I don't care how cool you are. How many people thought they were working with the greatest person in the world, and as soon as a dollar got on the table, they turned into a nut job, right? It's like, where was the cool guy I was with yesterday? What happened? That's because people view money very differently. And depending on their behavior profile, they look at that dollar as theirs or not theirs. Something they're entitled to or something they might be privileged to have. And people look at those things very differently.
But all this starts going back again with doing the needs analysis constantly with them, doing the consultation. If you're not doing any of that, this part gets a lot tougher because you don't have the tools you need to overcome that emotion and logic.
All right, so this next one's fun. Do you guys have inspections up here?
Oh, yes.
Okay, just checking. We didn't have CE, I just found out this morning. All right, so inspections. In my opinion, inspections tend to be where things start to derail fast, right? I think I'm going to give you a tactic that's going to change the way that you negotiate these from here on out. This is going to be worth price of admission. This is where reverse psychology comes in, okay? This is the first test of on the same side, not on the same side. And understand, if you've got somebody that's going to start freaking out on you, this is where it's going to come to light the most, right? Because in an inspection, we tend to set things up for opposites. If we say right, they say left. If they say up, we say down. Whatever we say, they go opposite. And it shows up at the inspection. Let me explain what this looks like. We get an inspection report back from an inspector. We're under contract. We are delighted because there are only 17 things on the list, right? And not 50 like the guy last month. Follow that? We do this every day. And we understand that most of the things on the 17 list is nothing. Problem is we call our buyer and go, hey, looks great. There's only 17 things on this list. And most of it's really not a big deal. Everybody done that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why? Because we're flying the plane and we're trying to keep people calm. Got that? The problem is this is not the time to do that. Because here's what they're going to do. How many? 17? Where's the damn list? Right? And all of a sudden they're looking there, you're going, well, let's go to the first one, the GFCI outlets or whatever. GFCIs, how much do those cost?
$7.50.
Like $8, right? Anybody ever been here?
Yeah.
Right. So let me tell you where you go now. Change everything you do about this inspection process, and I want you to call and I want you to leave a voicemail. Important. Not an email, voicemail. And if you've got slide dial or anything like that, I want you to leave a voicemail if you can at all help it. And I want the voicemail to say, hey, it's Shaun. Call me when you get a minute. I just got the inspection report back on your house, and there's some things I want to talk to you about. So call me back. I have some concerns. Now, what are they thinking?
He's on my side.
House.
Things freaking sinking, right? You're going to get a call back pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Say, okay, are you at your, and be at your computer, and I want to say be at your computer when you call back, because when you call me back, I want to email you the report. So call back, get on the phone, say at your computer, I want to email this to you, and I want to go over this. And look, the first thing I want you to know is, I have no problem canceling this contract.
Yeah, I said that you did.
I have no problem canceling this contract, okay? I do this for a living. Looking at 47 or 50 houses for me is no big deal. So we can start this whole process over again. I'm totally cool with that. I just want you to know that. Okay?
What did he just do there, though? Because I have to.
Reverse psychology.
Yeah, I mean, he's now saying it's not about the money for me. Most buyers are going to think out of the gate, you want me to buy this house because you want to get paid.
That's right.
He just took that, he just completely disarmed that for the buyer.
Little takeaway.
Yeah, he's like, we can start over, no problem at all. Not whoever cares least wins.
So now I'm going to say, okay, the first thing on here, their GFCI outlets are all freaking screwed up. The buyer's going, well, what does that mean? You go, well, those things are like $8 a piece. I mean, why wouldn't the guy replace those? They're only $8 a piece. What's the problem? I mean, that's crazy. The guy's going, well, how many of them are there? You go, I don't know. I think there's like, you know,
Three.
like 3 or 4 of them that are like, and they're going, okay. And then we go to number 2, and then we go to number 3, and then we go to number 4, and then we get to number 17, and they're kind of going, where's the hammer? Right? Where's the
big stuff?
And they're going, should we really, do you think we should terminate the contract? And they're going, no, I don't know that we should terminate the contract. I just want you to know, if any of this stuff bothers you to that level, I'm okay. And what happens is they're going, well, easy. I don't know if I really want to get out of it. Can we like ask them to fix it? And you're going, well, sure. And they're going, well, why don't we just see if they'll fix it? And you go, all right. Right? We can ask them.
And then one up it. So you actually, Mr. Buyer, let's ask them for the dollars back, because I'd rather have you fix it, because the seller's going to take the cheap way out anyway. And
Obviously, they didn't replace the chips. Right?
But what happens is realtors, we're so busy trying to sell them why all this inspection's okay and move forward anyway, that they feel like we're not on their side. And then the whole trust issue happens. So by doing it this way, we're actually letting them know we're there for them, and whatever they want to do is good for us. That's what I'm doing.
If you play this tactic, the next time you pull an inspection out, you will be shocked at how much easier it is to keep this thing together. You will be shocked. Now, some people require a little more dramatics than others. Some people just need to kind of, you can just step over the line. Some need to really jump over the line and really be, you know, put your drama hat on. But the most part, what I want you to understand is, stop telling them it's okay. Let them tell you it's okay in that moment, and you be the person that has concerns. And because what they're going to feel is they're going to feel protected, not exposed. And when you tell them it's not a big deal, they're only $8 a piece, and they're going, well, we've got 16 more to go. And they just keep a tally, and they're concerned, and all of a sudden they're going, dude, that's like, you know, $1,200 worth of stuff. And you're going, no, it's not, it's only $1,200. But if you're the one saying only $1,200, they're freaking out. All of a sudden $1,200 becomes the deal breaker. But if you're saying, look, that's $1,200, dude, and they're going, yeah, but it's only $1,200. And you go, well, I know, but it's $1,200. And then all of a sudden, you want to be on the other side of that argument. Because if you're on the other side of that argument, you just take a gun away from them. And they end up, they convince and self-discover the reality of the situation, and they end up having to be the logical one, where you're kind of taking the emotional stick away from them. Make sense? Okay. Promise, you're going to love that. You're going to send me emails and go, oh my God, it works.
Question over here?
Can I, just one quick question?
Yeah.
So, that scenario, you had 17 points, nothing was a deal breaker, there was no hammer.
Right.
So, but let's say you have a hammer.
If you have a hammer, again, you're still on the same page going, look, here's the deal. We can get this person to look at it, we can get whatever, this is a pricey deal. You're still playing the role of, look, I'm never going to sell you a house that's not good for you. If we can't get this resolved, in my opinion, this is worth making a stand over.
The
Right.
baffles broke the septic. Let's get a septic guy in here to give us a clearer picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, and you guys deal with stuff like underground oil tanks and stuff like, I mean, you get some weird stuff up here that we don't play with. Yes?
Couldn't you also be creating a problem that doesn't exist? Because if you have a client that, you know, we do this for a living, and they're counting on us for expertise.
Right.
And so if I panic, then it could be creating a problem where there might not have been one.
So here's one of the things that I've always said about real estate agents. They're not all created equal.
Okay.
Okay? So what I found is the best agents are the most intuitive.
Okay.
Okay?
I got
So knowing your client
Right.
tells you whether we're going to kind of create more drama, less drama, no drama. It may be somebody you've sold 7 houses to. Probably not something you're going to play with. I will tell you, for a lot of first-time home buyers, this is like gold, right? Now, those are not all created equal either. But your job at any given moment is to be the most intuitive professional you can be, to understand that for you to do that dramatically every time an inspection comes up, you'd be a nut job to do that, right? However, what my hope is, this is an arrow in your quiver that when you feel like you've got a buyer who's a little bit whatever, that you can say, you know what, I'm going to try to go the other side of them and see if I can't pull them in it this way. It's just another tool for you to use. It's not the tool for you to always use, right? So, and as great as your clients may be, or as good a control as you have with your people, you don't bat 1,000. And there's going to be a time when you go, you know what, I'm going on the other side of this one and see if I can't get this guy back in line.
Thank you.
Because again, they're buying a 50-year-old house. And there's
Right.
gonna be some things on there, the roof rafters can be 24 inches on center, because when it was built 50 years ago, that was okay.
Right.
That's not something that can be changed, so there's certain expectations you'll set, and another tool in the toolbox, like Shaun said.
That's it.
You know, you're addressing something that a lot of, not a lot of agents, but there's definitely a number of agents that would say, oh, I don't deal with any of the inspection issues. And you're making a great point that communication with your buyers and your clients is huge. And yes, the attorneys have to write those letters back and forth, because I know somebody will say, well, in the state of New Jersey, the attorney has to handle it. But at the same time, you're showing concern and addressing what's going on in this contract and having that conversation. So regardless of how you do it, just make sure you're having this conversation.
The attorney's making $900 on the deal. And if it doesn't go through, they're still gonna bill $600. So they're not tied to the outcome here. I've always said that, you know, the realtors are the ones that stay ahead of the communication to make things simpler. If you leave it up to the attorneys, you have a lot more deals falling apart.
I just had the same thing with an inspection, and there was some issues, there was no way to access an attic. There was no attic, and, you know, the report went through, and I worked with this guy before, and he said, you know, so I said, listen, you sound a little weary. You know, you keep going back to that. Why, you know, what do you feel about this? How would you, you know, how do you want to handle this? And he said, well, what do you think, you know, maybe we can do something and get into the, you know, put a hole in the ceiling and see.
Keep a sledgehammer in your car, and you can plug it right through the ceiling.
I said, listen, if that's what makes you comfortable, maybe we should do that. And when we went to re-inspect, there was, they covered it, there was a fire. So that's why there wasn't.
That's right.
So, thank God, because if, you know, I would have said, no, don't worry, it's fine.
That's right.
Yeah.
That would have came to me later, and
That's
he
right.
said, you know, I'm glad we did it. And I said, so, you know, what do you like to do?
Right.
You know,
Here's
he
the,
said,
if
"Let's
you've
just do it."
never, there's a book out there called The Six Thinking Hats. It's an older book, but it's called, you used to hear Gary Keller talk about it a lot. The last name, the author's Bono, B-O-N-O.
Edward.
Edward DeBono, right? DeBono. And he talks about the different hats, like blue, yellow, red, green, black, hat thinkers. And one of the sections is about black hat thinkers, and there's a really good, if you understand black hat thinkers, if you're a high, for example, in D terminology, or this terminology, if you're a high I, what happens is when people have an objection or bring up something that's not a positive, we see it as an objection if you're a high I. And what a black hat thinker does is they notice things that need to be fixed for them to maintain interest. It doesn't mean that has no scuttle hole to the attic and therefore I'm not interested. It says, hey, there's no scuttle hole there. So I have questions around that and I need to evaluate that further. And because of the high I, a lot of times people will take that personally and see that as an objection to buying the property when all they're doing is saying, this is a flag for me that requires more information. Now that may lead to an objection where I don't want to buy it, but the initial response is, hey, I see something that requires more information. And we have to hang in there on that and be okay with being a person that helps gather the more information to the level of comfort. Because a lot of black hat thinkers still want the house, they just need to get some issues resolved for them to do it. And a lot of those issues can be resolved with good negotiation and all that good stuff. So good job on that, by the way. Good job. Yeah, all right. So, 10. When your seller doesn't want to respond to a lowball offer. Here's a great example. How many people have sellers that just laugh off offers? Right? Not going to respond. Okay? Understand when somebody looks at an offer and goes, well, that's ridiculous. I'm not even going to respond to that. Is that an emotional objection or a logical objection? Emotional. It's emotional, right? So we have to bring logic to the table, right? We can't let somebody take an offer and dismiss it, right? So 2 scripts for that, however you want to do it. Number 1 is, look, let's not be offended by the person who brought you an offer, right? If you want to be offended by all the people who looked at your house and didn't like it enough to make one, right? This person liked it enough to put an offer together, so let's not be offended by that, right? And sometimes that'll get it back. The other is, and this is a great tactic, is for you to look at it because typically they just think it's low, right? So the question that you have to somebody who doesn't want to respond to an offer is, what do you feel a more acceptable offer would have been? Because they've got a number in their head. And they're thinking, well, I think they should have at least come in at $350. And you go, would you have accepted $350? And they go, well, no, but that's where I think they should have come in. And then you go, okay, forget everything I just said. This is a $350 offer. And all the other terms apply. So let's start at $350. This is I misunderstood. It was not $280. It was in fact $350. I didn't have my glasses on. It was a $350 offer. How would you respond to $350? And let's respond, because typically there are a lot of people that just kind of throw stuff out there. You know, I love when buyers bring arbitrary offers and they say, well, I came in at that, you let's meet me halfway, and go, halfway from what, Disneyland? Come on. You know, there's nothing to base it on, right? So ask them where they felt like it should have come in, and then resubmit the offer to them based on that number. It'll show them that, hey, if you wouldn't have accepted $350 and you wouldn't have accepted $280, it's the same difference. Just counter it like you would at a number that you would be comfortable countering it. And you will find that one of those 2 things will actually kind of snap somebody back into play and bring, it's hard to say no to the second one in particular.
We were looking for $400,000 yesterday. We're only looking for another 120 today, so
Right.
it's getting better.
Right.
so it's no longer a 400 gap, it's only 120 gap. Let's respond with something and see how much we can get them to move. Comment?
I just had a deal last week over there, and now I've been in the business a long time, but it doesn't really matter how long you're in the business as long as you do your work every day, time you do
That's
it.
it.
But another agent's on the phone, and I sent her over to her, and she dismissed the offer before we even got into the negotiations. And then started going to the rant, I've been doing this 28 years. I said, well, I've been doing 30 years at that. I said, what are you going to do? No, but we got cut off right before we can even get this negotiation started. And you know what? The seller was high, the buyer was low, but I thought we could have got something. But when the agents are so arrogant, they don't even want to.
It's ridiculous.
They made a decision for the seller before we even started over there, and basically just I hung up on the phone, you know.
Do you guys do in-person presentations?
Try to.
They don't allow you.
Well, here's the challenge, and I believe North New Jersey Association of Realtors, I know RMLS, our board, you're given the right to do it. If they say no, then they got to provide something in writing from their sellers, not an email that they got that day, but something that they had signed previously saying you can't. Because as a buyer's agent, you want to work to the best ability of your client. And sometimes you need to work past that again. And you're getting the agent on your side, saying, hey, listen, I want to do 1 of 2 things with you. Either A, I want to work together to get this house sold. Or B, I want to help you get the price reduced so you can sell it to somebody else. Either way, I'm going to help you look good.
Oh, what you were saying before about what's happening in the market, I mean, there were like almost 400 people looking on that house at Zillow, and in the last 2 months, nobody made an offer. And I was the first agent that came in with the offer. Now, the agent just blew out the first offer that came in, and I mentioned, you know, there's 380 people that looked on this house on Zillow already, and they have not, I mean, she said somebody was going to make another agent was going to make an offer, but in 2 months, nobody made an offer and stuff, but they didn't realize that it was already dismissed in the marketplace based on the price of the house, you know?
Here's the deal. If the phrase, I've been doing this for if that ever comes out of your mouth, I want you to realize that's your time. You either need a big vacation or you need to retire. It's one of the 2. I don't care how long you've been doing this business. It probably makes you more antiquated 30 years later, not more relevant. Right? So we have to be careful about that. But I will tell you, if you go back to when you got your real estate license, the first and foremost thing that we're supposed to do is to facilitate the transaction. That's the way it's worded. Facilitate the transaction. And just on that alone, how many people don't facilitate anything? And they just automatically put these people in different camps. And truthfully, we expect buyers to be low and sellers to be high. Yeah, we all get that. That's the way the game is. If that wasn't the case, there'd be no reason for us to exist. You understand that? So for somebody to say, hey, I think that's why we have a friggin' job, lady. Right? Sellers are high, buyers are low. That's why we get paid. So you and I have to work together to pull this together, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and maybe kind of diffusing some of that. Yep.
I just wanted to say when years ago, when I was selling, and especially going in and getting a listing, when everything was said and done, before I had them sign, I said, I want you to look into my eyes. I want you to shake my hand before you sign this. This is very important. You will be receiving offers. Some you're going to feel insulted. All I want from you is that to promise that you will counter no matter what.
Right.
And they will look and shake hands, and when the time came and we were going back and forth, I said, do you remember? I said, yes, you do. I will. Even if it's
That's a great tactic. I
but
love
that
it.
worked beautifully.
I love it. You're paying me to negotiate. Don't take that opportunity away from me. Right? Yes.
I love your line better, but I actually, for all these years, full timer, and I never say it when I'm negotiating, by the way. I always say it never matters where they start, it only matters where they end.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
But I like your tactic better.
Right? Anytime we want to buy something, go buy a new car. Are you going to offer them what they're asking?
No.
You're not. I mean, it's human nature. Now, some people don't realize what's appropriate and what's not because they don't do this all the time. That's okay. Just let me do my job. Let's stay in this thing together. You work on your guy. Let me chisel away on my guy, and let's see if we can't make this thing together and bring it together. I know on paper you're thinking, what a jerk. Actually, I've got a really nice client. Just needs to be educated and hasn't done this in a while, and we can get there. Just keep me in the ballgame, and let's just play tennis and keep the rally going a little bit. Yes.
So I would actually suggest a transition, and it's that every offer is what I call an OTN, an opportunity to negotiate. There is never anything, there's never a lowball offer. Every offer is an opportunity to negotiate, and that's a real important transition to make with your client.
I love that because if you look at it, a buyer sees your list price and goes, what are they smoking? Right? And that's an emotional response, right? And a seller sees a lowball offer and says, what are they smoking? That's an emotional response. Our job is to negotiate those mindsets to a meeting of the minds. It's all it is.
Yeah.
It's all it is.
I want to add something. So
Please.
I'm actually not a licensed realtor. I'm a mortgage banker.
Love it.
There's a realtor in the office who had a home listed recently at about 3:30. And at the end of the day, because of how that home was priced, he brought all of the potential buyers to the market. Not some of them, right? So if this was a listing that was, say, in the 80th percentile compared to the market, he would have brought some, but it was priced ultra competitively, probably in the lowest 20th percentile of the market. He brought every buyer. And at the end of the day, he took the contract in at $350,000, $20,000 higher than what it was listed for.
That's right. That's right.
So OTNs, opportunities to negotiate.
I love it. Thank you for that. That's cool. Here, Beth.
My wish is for the agents that are in this room really take this to heart because that would be the difference of the agents in this room, that we do keep those negotiations open, because it's nothing worse than an agent who does what you just said does, and then that's the reputation that you get when you have that listing out there, that that's how you treat other agents. You have to sometimes, well, most of the time, educate the agent on the other end. So you always have the opportunity to negotiate with them and try to get them to behave how you want them to.
So here's the script. So you got a listing. Everybody's got a listing. Picture yourself having a listing, and picture yourself getting an offer that's way low. Here's the script. Ready? Thank you for your offer.
Thank you, really.
Thank you so much for your offer.
Thank you.
That's the script. That's the script. It's thank you for the, not, hey, I think you're missing a zero. Hey, I've been doing this 28 years. What the hell's wrong with you? It's thank you for your offer. Tell me a little bit about your buyer. Tell me a little bit about your buyer. Let them start to tell you who this is coming from, right? I got to present this to my seller. I'm excited to do so. The more information I can have about your buyer and their position might be helpful. Tell me about your buyer. Tell me about the situation. Tell me about the thought process. How did you come about making this offer? Well, we just kind of pulled a number out of thin air. Okay, well, I just need to know that, right? Just needed to know that. Ask questions. If you are making statements, you're probably treading on thin ice. When you're far apart, negotiation works really well when you investigate more and determine less. Just so you know. Yes?
Well, we'll probably get to the multiple offers, but
Yep.
exactly what, well, we're trained constantly in, you know, our behavior. There's a multiple offer, about 9 offers on the property. The seller was ready to sign one of them, which wasn't mine. But the way I presented it, what happened was at the table, when she was ready to sign, that agent for that contract was texting, was calling, was texting, was calling, and saying, we have to get this. I know, just then, the seller picked us, she told me after the fact, she says, the seller ripped the paper, contract, and said, who's next?
Right.
We weren't as high as the rest,
Right.
but because of the way I presented it to her,
Cool.
and everything else, she said, Marilyn, if it wasn't for the way you were, she goes, you wouldn't have gotten this. She goes, but, and we just, the whole transaction, she even wrote, you know, something, and just, you gotta behave. You gotta do the right thing.
We're going to talk about multiple offers. Hold that thought, because I think you're stepping on some great stuff. All right, go to number 12. Have great paperwork. For me, I will tell you, I'm a stickler for presentation, and there's nothing more annoying to me than seeing offers that are handwritten, that have spelling errors, that have typos. And for me, any correspondence I have, I want to make sure that it is bulletproof in its look of professionalism and its presentation of professionalism. If nothing else, I want to win on presentation of professional standards, not less. So I think that's important when you negotiate. 13, you've got to practice building rapport and establishing trust. Understand that just because you had trust in the rapport early in the transaction doesn't mean you still have it. And you are always working to improve rapport and trust with your client and the other agent. Having it once before is not a given that you will have it today. So constantly work on maintaining a relationship and let them know that you are somebody that's still in their corner, that's fighting for them, and hasn't moved across the table away from them. 14, always protect your reputation in the industry. This is big. Again, you see agents all the time. You don't see these buyers and sellers all the time. So when you've got a client that says, hey, you tell them to stick it where the sun doesn't shine, right? And you go, okay. Now if you go back and say, hey, stick it where the sun doesn't shine, there's no reason to have an agent involved. You should just let them talk to the seller directly, right? So I'm probably going to carry a message back to the other agent and say, look, I got good news and I've got bad news. Good news is, I have an offer for you. Bad news is, it needs a little work, right? Which says, look, I'm reasonable, I understand what's going on here, let's make this thing happen. Don't do everything your client says. One of the biggest mistakes I watch agents make all the time is they do exactly what their client says to do. You have a license that says, I know how to, I'm a black belt at this. You're not. So I can't do everything you say to do. Some of it's not legal. Some of it's not ethical, and some of it just isn't going to help you at all. So let me do my job. Tell me where you want to be, and let me help you get there. So be careful about what you do, and make sure you're always protecting your reputation, because again, moving into multiple offers, it's going to be a shame when you have a client that doesn't get the house because you were a jerk before, right? All right. So multiple offers. First section is when you represent the buyer. Write the best offer with the best terms in the buyer consultation. Prepare the client for the market and multiple offer situations. Again, buyer consultation. If your buyer is hearing about how to handle a multiple offer at the moment a multiple offer is happening, it is time for them to freak out, and they will. They are not going to remember what you tell them at the consultation, but it will seem vaguely familiar, which is helpful. So part of your buyer consultation is how do we address things if there's a multiple offer? Because all of this is nice and easy and breezy until there's 10 offers on a property, and then everything moves real fast in microwaves. And I want to talk to you about how we maneuver through that and what our job is and so and so and so and so. So you want to prepare them for multiple offers way before there's an emotional reaction to actual multiple offers. Does that make sense? Okay.
And this is the time to ask the other agent a lot of questions. Assume that the other agent might not tell you everything. How many offers are there? Are there any other offers from your office? Do you represent the buyers of any other offer? You know, what's the process look like? How will you be handling this? So make sure you're asking questions of the other agent to help you understand how they're going to handle it to give you a better chance of being in the game.
Love it. Love it. Well, and you guys have, your designated agency is...
Well, it's unlike most areas, we could be disclosed dual agent as two agents in the same brokerage. A lot of states, we could be a seller's agent and a buyer's agent working for the same company. The agency goes with the seller.
That's right.
Sorry, with the agent, not with the broker.
That's right.
So because in our world it goes with the broker, you understand, are you representing any of the other offers? Is anyone from your office representing the other offers? What's your office policy on that? You know, does someone else step into play in that situation?
Okay. Yeah, that's different. Georgia, we have designated agency.
Designated agency, a lot easier.
All right, so present your best offer. Multiple offer situation, understand, typically starts at list price, right? Typically. When multiple offers are there, buyers need to understand this is like, and I'm not talking list price less closing costs, I'm not talking list price minus a home warranty. It typically starts at that, you know. It doesn't have to, but just understand that every little dollar that you ask for is going to be looked at under a microscope when you come through it. So a lot of buyers look at you in a multiple offer situation and say, what should I offer? Right? You may have been asked that question?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So here's the way you answer that. The answer is, you need to think about what the price is that you're willing to pay for the property. The price. Let me explain what the price is. The price is the price that we put on an offer that we send to the seller. And if I call you and say, congratulations, you got it, you don't go, we should have offered $5,000 less. Right? You say, great, I got the property. It's also the very same number that you put on the paper, and if I call you back and say, we didn't get it, you don't go, I should offer $5,000 more, right? Don't hold anything back. There is one number that if you get it, you're happy, and if you don't get it, you're fine because you wouldn't have paid $1 more under any circumstances, right? So you need to determine what the price is for you. And I want to be perfectly clear, because if I come back and say you didn't get it, I don't want you to say, well, you told me or you didn't tell me. This is the price for you, right? And the price for you is the price for you. It may be different for her. It may be different from the other person on the other end of this. It may be different from the other person from the other company submitting an offer. This is like golf. All of a sudden, you can't control what anybody else on the field does. You can only control your shot. So hit a shot that you're comfortable with, you're okay with if you get, and you're okay with if you don't get, and move on. And and if you can bring that logic into it, you can kind of get them to kind of play games. We're going to talk about an exception to that in a second. Have dialogue with the client. They need to understand this. When we send something in a multiple offer, we can have it accepted. If we're lucky, we can have it countered. And if we're really lucky, or if we're not lucky, we can have it rejected. Right? So it can be accepted, great. Countered, great. Rejected, not good. Unless we're okay with it. Right? But those are really our three options. And truthfully, if we stay away from number 3, if we get a counter, that's usually a great sign. Right? And there's a couple of things that I like to do that might help us get a counter in the deal. All right, so D, include a letter of offer that creates warmth and personality. If you cannot be at the presentation of the offer, which is pretty common. You need to make sure that that doesn't mean that you don't have a good presentation at the table. So even if it's not a multiple offer, by the way, in any offer you present, particularly multiple, but in any offer you present, I think it's very important that you write a cover letter with your offer. Not a fax cover sheet, by the way. That's different. A cover letter. And the cover letter starts off and says, "Hi, I'm Shaun, I'm with Keller Williams Realty. Enclosed is an offer to purchase your property at so-and-so. I first want to congratulate you on your choice of agents. I've worked with so-and-so several times in the past. She is an unbelievable professional, a credit to the industry, and one of the best people at her firm."
Wow.
That was good.
Why am I saying that?
Get them on your
She's
side.
going to want them to see this letter. Do you understand that? She's going to want her seller to see this letter. So I compliment the agent first, as hard as it may be. She drives a really nice car. Whatever you got to find and compliment on it. Now, then I'm going to say, let me tell you a little bit about my buyers. They're a first-time home buyer. They're a couple that's been married for a year and they're expecting their first child, and we've been searching endlessly for the perfect property to raise a family in, and they have fallen in love with your home for its opportunity to create the memories they want to create. Right? I've attached a photo of them.
Even if they're ugly?
Please help them. Yes, please help them. Right? I've attached a photo of them so that you can more particularly understand who might be the buyers for your home. About our offer, we have the offer that we have come in with is based on the last 3 transactions that we were able to find in the MLS system. We have scoured the information that we have at hand to justify the price that you're asking for your property, and have only been able to find these homes that support the price that we're coming in on. If you have access to any information that we may be missing that would help us improve our offer, we would be delighted to consider it. What is that saying? Hello? Where did you come up with this price? Now you have to defend it, right? And we're happy to change our number if you can defend it. Follow that? But it's reasonable. We hope you'll consider our offer, so-and-so and so-and-so. Thank you so much. We appreciate hearing back from you by so-and-so tomorrow at noon, whatever it is. Seller's going to see that letter because it compliments the agent, right? They're going to see a photo of your cute or not so cute couple, right? Whatever it is, if you want. Maybe that doesn't apply, but I will tell you, they take away their ability to not get connected with the buyer. And when you create these little letters and you create a little image of the buyer, they feel like they now know them compared to the other offers, and they're going to feel a little more compelled to make something work for somebody real versus somebody imaginary. Yes?
Shaun, I love everything you say.
Right.
I'm so afraid that you then give the seller the opportunity to reach down into their own personal biases in a changing demographic.
Then don't do it. Then don't do it. Then don't do it. Go back to what I said before. Intuitive, be intuitive. Don't do it. There are times when you should do it. There are times when maybe you shouldn't do it. This is a tool for your toolbox. Everybody hear that?
If you want to get 7 offers, this could be a competitive advantage for you.
I agree, or it could be a deal killer.
Could be. Be intuitive. Don't include a picture. Include a picture? I don't care. I'm telling you what's worked a lot, or I wouldn't be sharing it. So, does it work every time? Absolutely not. Nothing works every time, just so you know. Nothing works every time. Yes?
Have you ever gotten like an answer from the other agent that's just been like totally...
An answer from the other agent.
Between that here and hearing something really stupid on the other end. I mean,
Like?
just just something, just maybe another friendly.
Well, I can tell you, as a broker, I've seen it come in from other companies, and it's always a wow. It always impresses me about the agent that's bringing it in. It tells you a lot about the agents more than anything else. I don't think there's a downside of presenting an offer with some type of positive first message. What that looks like, picture, no picture, story, no story, it's setting the table.
What would you use to determine whether, like he was saying, sometimes use it, sometimes not? Is there something that you would use to determine what would?
Well, here we're talking specifically about multiple offer negotiations where you represent the buyer.
Right, that's a great example.
This is a great time to use it because you need some type of advantage to set yourself apart from the other 9. And you don't want it to be always about price, because it may not be about price that does it. It may be, years ago, I had a seller who met the buyer when they were showing the house. The seller accepted this buyer's offer, who was $10,000 less than everybody else, because they were from the same town in Bergen County originally. And he was moving out there the same age the seller moved out there. So he just identified with that buyer. So you're looking for an opportunity where you can get the seller to feel some type of a bond or a connection with that buyer to give yourself a connection.
And I think truthfully, I think this bond or connection is one of the things that we forget to bring to the table. And I think we make it all about price and terms. And truthfully, when you get in a multiple offer situation, it's all about everything. And people who come to the game with more, I'm just telling you, this will win you stuff. Now, play it inappropriately or play with the wrong person, it may not, right? I'm not here to guarantee you anything, but I'm here to tell you, I think you can add some things to your toolbox that may improve your client's chances of getting some property. Yes?
I like what you did, but I've done that for several years, and I'm going to go back to doing this again. But I had my buyers, usually ask them to send a photo and just write the stuff to them why they like the seller's house, and it really usually works when the buyers put it in. You don't even know what they're going to say, and it's amazing what they come up with.
When they say the inappropriate thing, though.
Well, you will find that if you have a letter from the buyer, it's really compelling. It can be really compelling.
You know, everything that you're saying is wonderful, and it brings me back, afraid to say this as a very old timer, what we actually used to do sitting at the table, toes to toes, nose to nose, belly to belly. That's what we used to do.
That's right.
And now the opportunity in most cases is not given to you, so you're just finding another way to bring the articles that were important to the transaction back into the modern technological world. And I appreciate that.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Well, here's the other thing that a lot of people think it's better if I can present my offer to the seller. I don't know that that's always true. And the reason why I would say that is the seller selected an agent as the person that represents them. So they like that person, however evil they are. The seller likes them, right? And the seller, you have to assume the seller trusts them. That's why they hired them. So what happens is when you bring another person representing another party into the property or into the house or into the office or wherever that takes place, people are more on guard than open. And sometimes the presentation of the offer can be overly forceful, and all of a sudden it alienates the other team because they didn't have the right of trust with the seller that the other person did. So sometimes having a representative of you and your client at the table without you being there can sometimes be better because less is more, and will allow the seller to use their level of influence with the seller that you might otherwise screw up just by being there, not because of a level of skill, just because of the dynamics of that. Sometimes the dynamics work great, sometimes they don't. I mean, we've all been in situations where we presented in person and it worked, and we presented in person and it didn't work. Who knows why? There's no batting 1,000. Chances are, the gig is, what other tools can I use in this situation that might be appropriate? Got it? Yes?
I just got a personal experience. You know, my wife, last house, they got 2 offers. People came to see the house. The higher offer, they came to the house and, you know, they didn't feel the spirit about the house. The second one, it was like a $20,000 left, but they was so emotional in buying the house. They loved the house so much that my wife gave the house to the lower bid because the other people just like it's a house.
Like their house more.
Yep.
Right.
So it happens.
Was it your 20,000 she gave away?
Yeah. Well, she's happy.
I lost $1 million listing once because I didn't like the lady's curtains as much as another agent did. That was it. I prepared all this stuff, and all I had to do was go, these are awesome curtains. Who knew? Right? And you just never know. Yes.
How did you find that out, though?
From asking feedback. They're just like, well, we felt like the other agent liked our house better. And I go, well, what specifically? And she said, well, you know, we spent a lot of money on our curtains and stuff, and the other agent really noticed that, and you didn't.
Deal breaker.
I person,
Okay, all right, E, be on good terms with the other agent. If you know there are opportunities, ask to present in person. Ask the other agent for the opportunity to counter if there's a better offer. Okay,
There's an interesting.
here's a good trick. If you get a chance to present in person for a multiple offer, I want to tell you something that has increased my conversion rate in multiple offers tremendously. I would sit with you as a seller, we would sit at the table, we'd have our offer, right? So here's the deal. Tough spot that you're in as a seller is deciding which offer to pick and which offers to not pick. And you're never really going to know what somebody else may or might have done because you have to pick one typically to move forward with. So I'd like to see if I might make that easier on you by telling you this. Please look our offer over and give it all the consideration you need to give it. If this is not acceptable to you right now, please counter this offer. Counter this offer with whatever you want to counter it with. My clients are in my car in your driveway. And I will walk outside, and if you will give me 5 minutes, I will walk outside, present your counter to my client, and we will either accept your counter or we will remove ourselves from the table in 5 minutes without making phone calls. They are literally 30 feet from your front door right now. And you will be shocked. You will get that counter. Say, look, if pick crazy. You got 3 other offers. Pick a crazy counter. Pick whatever you want. We'll either take it or we're off. You won't even have to worry about what we wouldn't do that, and you can take us off the table. And you can only deal with whatever else you have. But they're super qualified. It's a super offer. They're awesome people. They work at so-and-so. I can give them all the stuff they do. They're awesome people. Counter whatever you need to counter with. We'll accept it or we'll walk away.
Sean, we use the term best and final. Have you guys get that down here, especially multiple officers?
It drives me nuts.
What are your thoughts on that?
Truthfully, best and final,
Is never.
number one, I think best and final puts more pressure on a listing agent than you need to have. Because in your heart of hearts, you know some of the people and you don't know some of the people. And that's not so much from an agent standpoint. I may say, you know what, truthfully, I worked with this guy before. I got to tell you, if there was somebody I would disqualify just because of past experience, he's a jerk.
Yeah, really, we love it.
Right? Now, Michael Brand, I've had 3 transactions with him in the last 18 months. Every one of them goes smoothly. He has complete control over his clients in my experience, and he's got a track record that gets him to the table. And I think he really has a handle on his buyers from what I've been able to tell. And if there was anybody in this pile that I would like to see that I could work with, it would be this guy. I don't know the other 2 people at all, nor do I recognize their mortgage company. And I understand they're the highest offer, but to me professionally, they're the biggest unknown. So highest and best means I've got to select whoever wins the race. This is like dissecting opportunity and really nuances in the deal. So as a seller, I say, here are the things I want you to consider. Terms of that, here's my input on the people that I work with to make this happen, and then let's figure out what you want to do. And I may be able to go back and go, you know what, Michael, you're the lowest offer out of 3, but if you can get to this, I think you can get it.
And sometimes you don't realize we can, as sellers, agents, have that conversation. We can disclose whatever information the seller asks us to disclose to any one of the buyers.
Right.
So when we work with the sellers, it might be in our best interest, instead of using the term best and final, come in with your best offer and we may or may not counter you.
Right.
would be the way to approach that on the seller side.
Now, Michael, don't go disclosing it if you haven't had that conversation with your seller.
That's right.
Right.
But once you have,
That's right.
Yeah, the seller might say, well, hey, if this buyer with this agent that you like and trust will come to this price, then I'm good there. There you go. The seller has authorized me to give you the opportunity to come into this price to win this house. Would your client be interested in doing that?
Yep. All right, G, stress to the other agent that you're knowledgeable and experienced. The other agent will want to work with someone who can get the deal done. So however you need to explain that, explain it. There's a difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. And I think that the more approved someone is, the better it is. Pre-qualification letters can oftentimes just be very cursory things. Pre-approval letters can be, everything's done, we're just waiting on a property to plug into the deal. So the more qualified somebody is, the better off you're going to be perceived. I, escalation clause. Single-handedly, the escalation clause has given our agents more wins in multiple offer situations than anybody else in town. And I will tell you, escalation clauses have, for the most part, not been a tactic that we've used in Georgia until the last probably year or two. But man, are they effective. I don't know if you use them or not. We're going to tell you. So here's what an escalation clause is. Here's our offer. It's $350, right? All these terms. There's a stipulation that has an escalation clause. The escalation clause basically says, here's the deal. Our offer is $350. We will go $5,000 above any other bona fide offer up to a maximum purchase price of $380.
Then why wouldn't you pay $380 if someone's gonna say?
Because I may not have to.
Right.
I mean, what is that?
Why are you telling your top number?
Because I'm trying to win a house. This is a multiple offer situation. And if they didn't want to come in at their highest number because they're thinking, you know what, I don't think people are going to offer that much, you go, well, you may be right, you may be wrong. If you want to play that game, the escalation clause is kind of an interesting tactic because it says, it doesn't really matter where my offer is, just know that I'll pay $5,000 more than anybody, but I won't pay any more than $380. But you have to prove bona fide offer by showing us the first page of the offer.
I used that once and won the bid.
Sure.
But the other agent, two attorneys, everybody is confused that they don't know about this.
Right.
Around here, nobody.
Well, it's right. In North Jersey, we started using it in 04. We started using it at the tail end of the
3 years ago.
The good market.
Was confused. What's your final offer? Tell us what's your final offer. Well, I got it. Anyway.
5,000 better than your best offer.
Right, but they don't know. They don't understand.
Hang tight, hang tight.
I've been using the escalation clause for years and it works like a charm.
It's unbelievable. Sellers get it. I don't care how confused attorneys or agents are. Sellers get it. Just so you know. We're not trying to impress the other agent or the attorney. It's the seller that we have to get on board with it. Yeah.
Sean, you know, they're not as nice here in New Jersey as they are in Georgia.
We got a lot of people from the north in Atlanta.
Honestly, we don't call it what you're calling it. We called it meet and beat clause.
Meet and beat.
Okay, meet and beat clause. But if you ever put down a number like we'll go as high as 380, the only number that seller will see is 380 plus 5 or 375 plus 5. That's the only number they'll see. So if we do it in the manner that we've done it over the years, meet and beat, we'll meet the highest and beat it by 2,000. You know,
Okay.
unless they have some friend as a shill in there saying, okay, we'll pay you 380, we'll write it up, now you'll get 385 or whatever.
Okay, so follow me on this. So if the seller says, you know what, screw it, I'll just counter them at 380. They don't have to follow the rule of the escalation clause. Do you understand that? But if they say, fine, I'll sell it to you if you'll pay me 380, that's a good thing, right? In a multiple offer situation. Now my client goes,
I don't want to pay 380.
I don't want to pay 380. That's fine. That's a counter offer. You rejected my first one. Now you're coming back with an offer, and I can take it or I can change my mind. Doesn't matter, right?
just differentiates your offer.
It just differentiates. Again, my goal as an agent representing a buyer, get my offer accepted, and if I can't get it accepted, keep me in the game. Because I believe when it comes to negotiations, by the way, is for people to choose their fate. When somebody else chooses somebody else's fate, it never feels good. If the seller came back and said, we didn't take your offer, we didn't like your escalation clause, we got some, okay, buyer's mad or upset because he didn't get it. Now, if the seller comes back and says, you know what, screw your escalation clause, we'll sell it to you for $380. And the buyer says, no. Guess what? Same result, but the buyer feels like it was in their control and they chose not to play versus somebody else taking that ability off the table. So anytime you have the ability to get your client to be the decision maker, you win. It's a lot better than having somebody else take it away and say they didn't accept it. If I do something that gets them to come back to us versus with anything other than rejected, I did a great job as their agent. You understand that? Now, they may still not get the house, but if we got another bat of the ball, that's in a multiple offer situation, that's called skill, just so you know. That's called skill. There's nothing worse than being, because here's what I tell people in multiple offer situations. Forget the YMCA. There are winners and losers. Everybody doesn't get a friggin' trophy in this game. Winners and losers. And there's nothing worse than losing in a real estate offer situation. So I want to position it so that if you get a trophy, it's your call. If you don't get a trophy, it's your call. I want to put, best case scenario for me is you choose trophy or no trophy, not somebody else choosing it for you. So if we get it accepted, great. If we get it countered, great. You're still in control. Rejected is the only thing I don't like because you're not in control. Follow that? Okay. Be persistent, be persistent, be persistent.
Without being obnoxious. There's a line.
Yeah, how many people have ever sold like the corporate reload? Right? So, I'll give you a story. My wife had a deal once where she had a buyer that really wanted to be in this house in a high-end subdivision in Atlanta. It was $1 million listing. And we called this agent who ran the table at that neighborhood. She sat on site and she was awesome. And when my wife called on the listing, the lady said, you know, I'm sorry, we just went under contract on that property. It's no longer available. And Gene said, well, golly, they really want the house. Now, when you say you just went under contract, isn't that a corporate reload? And she said, yeah. And she said, so you've accepted it and you're waiting for the confirmation from the company. And the lady just got quiet and said, oh, don't do this to me. Quote, oh, don't do this to me. And Gene said, I'm going to send you our offer. And she sent him a full price offer. And so even though the seller had accepted it, the company was now really, it was a verbal thing, and the company was the one that had to sign off, and the other paperwork was in route. So she had to say, before you sign that, I have another offer. And it was a better offer, and guess what happened? She won the house. So it wasn't, she just didn't say, well, the other lady said, you know what, we're under contract. Not technically. In spirit, yes, legally, no. So it wasn't an overly whatever, but it was somebody, if you knew enough to ask the question, you got it.
All written offers must be presented till when?
Closing.
Date of closing. So if you get, well, it's in attorney review, no problem at all, I need to send my offer directly to the attorney.
By the way, there's something I don't have on this list that you need to add. That is, do you guys put earnest money up when you make an offer here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Assuming your contracts are like ours, you've got things that you can use to get out of the contract. In multiple offer situations, a lot of earnest money, a ridiculous amount of earnest money, is usually a way for your offer to get favor without your buyer paying any more. So if you typically would have like $10,000 earnest money and it came in at 20 or 25, seller goes, wow, 25,000, that's the I'm sorry if I don't buy your house money. That is interesting because the seller will lock into that from a safety clause standpoint, knowing that if the buyer flakes out, they get more money than anybody else's. And you could have 3 offers at the same price and your offer can win because you have more earnest money and you didn't pay $1 more for it. So you just have to make sure you do your job really well and you get them out within the time frames of the contract. But goosing the earnest money is a really easy tactic in multiple offer situations. The other one is K. Don't put in a closing date. And just put in your letter, so you'll notice in our offer, we have not included a closing date, which says that we will close this as fast or as slow as you would like us to close it. We want this to be good for you on your time frame. If you would like for us to close in a week, we're ready to go and can do that. If you'd like 60 days or 90 days or whatever it is to do that because that'd be more comfortable for you, we're in a situation where we're able to allow that to happen. We are just more interested in your property over the long term than what happens in the next short-term time. And whatever works best for you is great for us. Yes?
Here in New Jersey. Yes. Under an agreement through the Supreme Court, we are only allowed to fill in contracts. We don't originate them, which is different in a lot of different states. So therefore, you do have to fill in all of those blanks. However, what we always do is asterisk it, make reference to exactly what
That's
you're
right.
saying, but you must fill it in.
Yeah, you put a little asterisk next to it.
Great, great.
And asking the seller's agent, what's the ideal closing date for your client? Just find out and make it look really attractive.
And then
Send a gift. I've had people send flowers with their offer.
Really?
Yeah. I've had people that were restaurateurs that have put, that were buyers that were restaurateurs, and they gave, a couple $100 worth of gift certificates to a restaurant with their offer.
If you don't take their offer, you have to return them? Oh my God, I like that.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So realtors can't give kickbacks, but the buyer can give a kickback to the seller.
Right.
No, I'm just done.
Yes.
We have a thing that you can put a $25 gift.
That's only for the realtors to
Whatever they want.
But that's something the buyers offer to the seller?
Right. However, just so you know, I think check with your accountant and check with your attorneys. If whatever you're giving is engraved, that falls under marketing and not a gift, and there's no limit on it.
So give them that flat screen TV with the plaque on it saying you give to my realtor.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
Just so you know, I'm here to help. 2, you represent the seller in multiple offer situation. By the way, this is the worst position to be in real estate. Listing agent, massive multiple offers, because you have to prove that you submitted all the offers, you have to tame the chaos, and you have to slow things down. If you get caught up in all the drama, you are doing everyone a disservice, mostly you. So make sure that you dictate the pace of the dance and you slow things down. We're going to talk about that. Make sure everyone knows the same thing. If you've got multiple offers, I suggest you quickly make a spreadsheet. List all the people at the table and make sure that if you communicated this, everybody got communicated. Check, 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 check. Make sure that everybody knows the same thing and has the same opportunity to win. Again, there are winners and losers, and the losers are going to blame you, just so you know. Remember that your job is to be professional, slow things down, see through the anxiety and chaos. C, ask the seller how they want to handle multiple offers and discuss the pros and cons. Meaning, we may have different offers. Michael Brand, the guy I like, brought an offer, and it might not be the best one, but he was first. Right? And then all of a sudden, she knew it was a multiple offer, and she came in with a much better offer. Well, she knew there was an offer. His offer didn't have another offer, and that's why his was lower. So let's give him a chance to play at another level. Some people say, I want to go with who's highest. Some people say, well, let's go with the person who's first, and let's play around with that and see. They were here first, so let's give them every opportunity to win. There's no rules for this. But you need to explain to a seller there really are no rules for this. But we have to look at how every little bit of information we have, and you have to make a call based on what makes you feel comfortable, and understand that when people are mad, I'm going to blame you. Get that? This is a pass. Don't take too much control in the situation when it comes to the other parties. Make sure they understand when you say we, I want you to take we out of your vocabulary and say the seller. The seller is looking at it. The seller is evaluating. The seller has determined. The seller has decided. The seller wants to blank. The seller, the seller, the seller, the seller, the seller. If you're mad at anyone, be mad at the seller, not me.
Because you might be on the other side of that table from that agent down the road.
Right.
Where they could have your fate in their hands. And you don't want them to hold this against you because it wasn't your decision, the sellers.
Right.
And multiple offers set clear expectations. We have multiple offers coming in. We're going to be meeting with the seller on Thursday at 6 o'clock, so please get your offer in no later than Thursday at 3.
Now understand, if you have multiple offers, ethically, you can only tell other people that it's a multiple offer situation if your seller gives you permission to do so. Most people don't know that because some people, no you don't.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. Multiple offers. If I have an offer from Michael and you ask me if the property is available and I say yes, I don't have to tell you that there's another offer on the table. Now, if my seller has to condone me telling you that.
Yes.
So I have to go to the seller and say, I've got another offer that wants to come in. Would you like for me to tell them about the other offer to create a more competitive environment? The reason you have to give me permission to do that is it's a small percentage, but there are some people who would choose not to present an offer and not be in a competitive situation. So I think the risk of that is small. I tend to like to let people know about the other offers, but you have to let me know if I can do that or not. Just so you know.
Nothing under disclosure.
In my experience, especially if you haven't seen the offers in writing yet, and it's a hot weekend and you're getting offers, there's really no need to go telling everybody that you got multiple offers coming in. Because you're right, you're gonna actually,
Scare people.
some people are gonna, I'm not getting involved in that. And then at the end of the day, it's Tuesday and you didn't get an offer from anybody. Been there, done that.
Make agents feel like you're going to bat for them. So look, I'm going to do everything I can to help you get this. Just give me this, give me this, give me this. If you can, come in not less than this. Do what you can. Make them feel like you're doing something to help, give them something that makes them feel like you're working for them. F, be courteous and upfront with agents submitting offers. Encourage them to submit the best possible offer as others are coming in. G, review each offer with the seller term by term. I tend to, in a multiple offer situation, I tend to like to present offers and leave price out. Go through every aspect of the offer, because what happens is as soon as I say 280, all they're doing is going, 280? What the hell are they, 280? So then they're paying attention and they're anxious to get there. And that allows you to evaluate ideal terms to the seller. So we can really have a discussion about these terms based on what the initial consultation was. And do these meet that? Is there anything that we need to play with?
If you have a buyer with 25% down versus a buyer with 3% down and $10,000 back for closing costs, $5,000 might not be as big of an issue.
Right. I would get on the phone with lenders in a multiple offer situation. I would get on the phone with the mortgage guy and I would say, tell me about this buyer. So if you have a multiple offer situation, I need to know exactly where they stand, what they've done, what do you have to do, what's left to pull in the file, have you run credit, have you run that, what are your concerns? I mean, I would want to talk to them because truthfully, if I get the mortgage person on the phone and I didn't know the mortgage person, if I could have that conversation with the seller there, the seller's going to come to the same conclusions that I'm going to come to in terms of the offer is, that guy sounded like an idiot. I don't think that guy's even ever met with these people. Versus the other guy says, oh, so-and-so, I did their loan for them 2 years ago when they moved here. They're unbelievable. I've never seen people so strong. They've got awesome cash in the bank. I mean, all of a sudden you hang up with that and they're going, well, they seem solid, right? That mortgage guy knows these people or seems solid. I mean, all these little factors come into play in a multiple offer situation. Nothing is left off the table of consideration because it may be important. And you've got the luxury of choosing the best of every little situation. All right.
Just one further, as I used to have my mortgage broker speak to the buyer, just so I had peace of mind that if they fell apart, or I knew if they could actually fulfill the financing.
So yeah. Sometimes, well, we've seen where some mortgage people have actually written a letter in addition to the approval letter, where they've written a letter that really is a deciding factor in it.
So 2 quick thoughts. First, never make the assumption that just because someone is putting down 30%, that they're better qualified than someone putting down 3.5%.
Correct.
Okay, that's really, really important because it's about closing, or what I call celebrating, rather than just down payment.
That's right.
The second is that, for me, I've implemented a different strategy with buyers, and I'm prepared to actually release Fannie Mae desktop underwriting findings with a client's permission to a realtor so that their offer can be as good as a cash offer.
Love it. Love it. But see, understand, if I'm sitting there with a seller with 4 offers and I get you on the phone, my comfort level with this buyer just went up. You get that? I mean, there are a lot, and chances are, one of the people I call is not going to be that guy. And even if it's not about my buyers, I'm trying to get information about the buyers, but in the process of getting information about my buyers, I'm actually getting information about the lender. Because they have a huge piece to play in this thing.
If he calls you back.
If he calls you back. Well, that's a factor too, right? So there you go. Yes.
I was going to mention, as far as the buyers, when they get involved with this situation, one of the first things I pull up is all the, especially with a lot of these distressed properties, I pull up on the MLS all the properties that sold above the list price and show them that properties are selling much higher than list price. And last year I did it for one area for foreclosures. There was 30% of all the foreclosure or distressed properties had multiple higher offers, and they were like way higher than the list price.
Right now in Atlanta, 18% of all transactions close at or above 100%.
And they don't know that, they can't even make the offer on the
That's
property,
right.
they feel uncomfortable, but it's just price and value are two different things over here, you know?
Price and value are always two different things. It's a great point. Somebody else have a hand up? I feel like, yes, ma'am.
It was just recommended to me that when I came up with listing, that one of the marketing points to do that, we're gonna require the LTD or LTD to do someone findings from the agent when we submit the offer, and what that is, that's the, whether the bank is willing to underwrite it.
Right. So you're saying, hey, we want to know exactly, we want everything from the lender that we can get. I love it. And if you've got a property that's going to generate more, you get to do that. If you've got a property that you're praying for an offer, you're probably going to loosen your stuff, right? But if you've got something that's really in demand, you get to be a little picky. All right. Shorten time frames. Shorten. Whatever time frames you've got, they get sliced and diced in a multiple offer situation. People need to make decisions quickly. They need to move fast, and if they're not willing to move fast, somebody else will be, because you do not want your property off the market longer than it needs to be. So be careful about that. Maybe, all caps, maybe set time frames that you'll be responding to all offers at the same time.
When wouldn't you? Give an example of when you wouldn't. If you say maybe.
Well, I may not want to respond to all offers at all. But it may be a situation where I really don't have a dog in the fight, and we're just going to put out there that that's kind of a high-level, needs an attorney tactic. Because it needs to specify how you're going to determine if somebody accepts it, and how the other ones are disqualified if other people accept it. It's kind of, I'm going to move through that.
So you can present your best offer, and we may or may not respond with a counter.
Yeah.
But stay away from the best and final conversation.
Right. Well, and you guys don't write contracts, so it's probably safer here, actually. Okay.
Actually, we do write contracts.
You do write contracts.
Contracts with attorney review.
Just talk to your team leader.
I think it's sliced and diced.
They just get overruled. Stress agent that you're following the seller's instructions on offers. You are not influencing the work with one and not the other. Ask for their patience. Share with the other agent how they can make the offer stronger. Makes them feel like you're fighting for them. Write down everything. Do not do verbals. Write down everything. People get in more trouble with verbals than in this situation. And again, this is part of the slow it down, tame the chaos, don't get sucked into the vortex of ridiculousness. Stay on it. Speak to the lender of the offers, make sure they're strong, dealing with who was first and who was best. Meaning, again, we've kind of touched on that. We have to look at who was first, who was best, and there are no rules. We can go with people because of different reasons and don't feel like you have to. Because one of the things that you have to understand is sellers feel like they have to do a certain thing. And you need to really coach them and say, look, just make sure, is that what you want to do? Or because they may say, well, I feel like I have to do it that way. You go, well, no, you don't have to do, you're in control. This is your house. Right? So we get to evaluate everything the way this works. P, you better be able to prove that you submitted all offers. As a broker, I will tell you every once in a while, that's where I get pushback on multiple offer situations, particularly with REO people or foreclosure specialists, where somebody didn't get the property and they want proof that their offer was presented because the listing agent said there were 15 offers. You know what? You got to do it. And understand that all offers is all offers. Does everybody understand that? Mm-hmm. A verbal offer has to be presented. All offers legally. Just so you know.
I thought only New Jersey only written.
You
can check.
Well, we say all written offers with consideration must be. Right. So there's no choice about that one. You know, it's not a bad practice to present in a multiple offer situation verbal.
All right, so the last section is negotiating with buyers and sellers, just in general, right? Yes, ma'am.
Just one other thing is, just to cover giving them the seller's attorney's information if you start to get any like flustered agent on the other end, because they still have the right to go ahead and send their offer over, or make sure their client has the right to send a better offer if they're an attorney review.
And make sure you communicate that with the attorney. Talk to the seller's attorney. Say, just so we've got multiple offers, we've set time frames. We're going to send you the best one, but we're going to let them know that they can fax to you if they have any additional offers after that point.
And they don't feel like you're blocking them.
Under negotiating with buyers and sellers, number 2, One of the things that we have a hard time with is overcoming objections when a seller or a buyer comes at us with something. And I just want to tell you how to deal with that in a way that gives you a little cause for pause. First off, if somebody responds, it might be a listing agreement where they're talking about your commission. It could be a myriad of things. But a lot of times, we look at an objection and emotionally we kind of get sucked in and we just our blood pressure goes up and we tend to say something we shouldn't say, because when somebody has an objection, what we tend to do is try to go into answering the question without really answering the question or isolating the issue. So when somebody comes at you, the first thing I want you to do is breathe. Literally, I want you to take a breath. Okay? Just for a second. It gives you just a second. And then I want you to say, that's a great question, or that's a great point, or that's an interesting point, or an interesting question. Okay? One of those two. That's a great point. Do you mind telling me what specifically about this is important to you? And if you will take that moment, say, that's a great question. Can you tell me what specifically about me working for nothing is important to you? Okay? But it's what specifically? Great question. Do you mind telling me what specifically blank? And repeat it. And make them defend their position. Because you're going to find a lot of people come at you, they've gotten advice at work, they've gotten advice at home, their daddy in Wisconsin told them to do it. They really don't have a dog in the fight, they just have to check off so that when they talk to their dad, they say, yeah, I asked, she said no. Right? But we get all flustered like they've got guns and barrels behind it, and they may not. So if you will just take a second and just respond with that, and respond firmly, what tends to happen is we just start talking. Talking. And if you find your voice going up in pitch, and your words coming out faster than you typically would like them to come out, that's like a dog. They can smell fear on you. That is a giveaway of nervousness and discomfort. And when somebody brings something up that you're not comfortable with, I want you to picture yourself just pulling up a lazy boy chair, sitting down by a fire, and saying, let's talk about it. Instead of trying to glaze over this stuff, stop when there's a speed bump and just settle into it. Be willing to talk about it long enough to make them uncomfortable for bringing it up. And it will go away. Typically, we just want to kind of move through it. Stop. That's a great question. What specifically about that? And then just put your Oprah pants on and sit down. Right? And have a conversation. Because when you isolate that as a conversation topic and you slow down, what it says is you're not uncomfortable talking about it. Right? So if there's something that I've done that might make you think that, let's talk about what did I not get across the plate? What questions do you have about my service? What questions do you have about my value? Do you understand that we do this? Let me show you the website instead of just talking to you about it. I'm going to show you how an offer. All of a sudden they're going, you know what, I'm fine. This is going to take all freaking day. I'm really fine. And that's really where you want to go with it. And just settle them down. Mastering scripts and dialogues. 4, bring your seat to the game again. And remember, as we talked about, behavior profiles and mirroring.
If you're a high D, don't try to D through a C. Reflect on them, who they are, communicate with them with the style they want to be communicated with, not the way you want to communicate with them.
So if you can identify somebody as a D, I, S, or C as a leading behavior profile, that's good. Now, if I tell you I'm a D, or you guess that I'm a D, most importantly, the biggest question you need to ask for me is, what am I afraid of as a D? Who knows the answer to that? I'm afraid of you taking advantage of me. And if I don't sell houses all the time and you do, I'm really nervous because you're a pro and I'm not. And I'm afraid you're bamboozling me to get what you want. Now, but that's my fear innately. The other is getting my time wasted. So be brief, be gone.
Be bright.
Right?
Be bright.
Be bright. What if I'm an I? What am I fearful of? If you peg me as an I, what am I fearful of? I don't want to be rejected. I'm going to take a lot of things personally. And you need to take the personal hat off and make me see logically, not emotionally. What if I'm an S? What am I fearful of?
Rejection.
Change.
Afraid of change.
This whole process, all the books about the most stressful thing, moving, that's me as an S. I'm about to flip out on you. I may look composed in my nice suit and my 50,000 car, but I am going to lose my stuff in a matter of minutes. What if I'm a C? What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of making a mistake. I'm afraid that your idiot agent rear end is more smart and more knowledgeable than I am. Right? I'm afraid of being wrong. Now, S's are also protectors of family. They want to make sure, they look at their responsibility to protect the family or the company or whatever it is. S's are protectors. So make sure that you understand how they protect their family by making a good decision. It's good to identify somebody as D, I, S, or C, but if you're not really in tune to what they're afraid of, you're missing the whole point of the exercise. And if you don't know what they are, talk as fast as they talk as strong as they talk, mirror them as much as possible. As much as possible. Golly, we are dead on time. 11:30. How about it? Hey, this has been fun. I hope you put a couple of tools in your tool bag that will be helpful. That'll help make you more money. Thanks for coming today. You guys have a great day.